Okay, so I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6 p.m. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just real quick, just some of the other board members were wondering, Jen is out tonight, so she just let us know that she'd like to fill in. So, all right. So, do we have any correspondence visitors or remarks from the public?
I'd just like to make some public comment. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Nicole Draper. I'm the Executive Director of Swanton Recreation. And I just wanted to express my gratitude and praise to the after-school program for providing opportunities for summer this year. They were a great collaborator and they allowed us to provide services to our young people that have made some significant impact. So again, I just wanted to offer my gratitude and praise to all of you for supporting that. Thank you. It's not because Beth Ann's here.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. Is there anyone else? All right.
Agenda review. I don't know if it has to be on the agenda. Maybe it can be after the meeting, but the people who volunteered to be on a committee that was going to look at criteria for salaries, we should at least set a date.
So Don, what I'll do is I'll just email you, Megan, and Pierrette, and we'll just come up with a date. Approval of the minutes. Anybody has anything about the minutes? We'll go over that. From July 10th. I move we approve them. Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Peter? All in favor of approving the minutes from July 10th? Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
I'll abstain, I wasn't there.
All abstain.
So 602.
All right, next item is administrative reports and the MVU district office. So I'll open it up if board members have questions about the administrative reports. So we have a couple administrators here. Appreciate you joining.
I think we could skip the highlights from it, of the MVU report, and if Dan or Christy want just a couple of highlights. I really like that.
All right, we'll do the MVU reports and we'll come back to that.
So one of the things that we had quite a lot of work happening over the summer, and so Dan compiled a list, and I picked it up off his desk so I could bring it here. I think at the end of the meeting we're going to go take a look at the theater, the new seats in the theater, so you'll be able to see those. And then it might be a little bit dark in there, but you can see the new epoxy floor Garage Outfitters did in there, and they painted the stage. There are handrails that have been installed going down the stairs, but there will also be handrails around the handicapped seating areas. We fixed some cracks in the floor at the end of that. It's called B-Pod, but the administrative area. There were a couple cracks in the floor there. The science room A40 is almost done. We have a sink that still needs to be installed, but other than that, all the new cabinets have been installed in there. We did a walk-in cooler and a walk-in freezer in the kitchen. That work is all done. And then as you walk around, you might notice a few places there's some new classroom doors. So in M-Pod, which is behind that theater area, C1, the weight room and the band room all have new classroom doors. I believe the roof is still on schedule. Had to stop for.
Yeah, they're still working on it, but with the amount of rain that we've had, they're still on schedule to get it done, so believe it or not.
So there's quite a list of projects around the building this year. Pretty excited about all that work being done. So one highlight. We start with our new teachers tomorrow. So MVSD, all of the district teachers will be here. And then Thursday and Friday we'll have just MVUs here. So see them, and then next week on Monday we'll start with the post.
Exciting.
Yeah. It's a fun time of the year.
Christy, I did want to ask, when you said trying to find building-based substitutes,
Yeah.
did you mean, is that just substitutes or is that?
Yeah. So substitutes for our building. It's always difficult to find subs. Yeah. A couple subs that we had have retired. Looking
Yeah,
forward.
unfortunately, a lot of the substitutes that we have were older, and during COVID, a lot of them stopped working. And we just haven't been able to get back up to that number that we had previous to COVID. So if anybody's out there and is looking for some part-time work, a couple days a week, or we're always looking for building-based subs. So we encourage anybody to reach out to Bond Moulton and in HR and see if we can increase our sub pool. So we have a desperate need for that, as do a lot of schools, but locally we have a desperate need for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to highlight, we talked about it in the facilities meeting last week, but appreciation to the staff, the custodial staff, and we talked about you're having a barbecue on Thursday for them. I didn't realize that that's been going on for 18 years. That's a really good thing, but and I wanted to say publicly in this meeting how appreciative we are of the staff and all the work that they do, especially over the summer. There's some big projects going on, so I'm going to be unable to attend that, but I hope that you and Dan are able to give them our appreciation of all the work that they've done and how much we appreciate that. Thank you.
It's a nice afternoon.
What time is that on Thursday?
Usually around 11:30 noon. Do you have a time,
Yeah.
Dan?
Yep.
Between 11:30 and noon?
Yeah, about 11:30 we will start.
Really?
About 11 o'clock we put all the food out. I'll be on the grill. And then about 11:30 we call the custodians down, and then everybody else comes down as well. So we typically, like all of our administrative staff, we bring in salads and desserts and other things for them. And they kind of get their food first, and then everybody else kind of comes through as well. It's also a great opportunity for our new teachers to meet our custodial staff. You kind of realize who's going to be working in their pod, and so it's a good opportunity for them to meet everybody before they get started.
I think that's really good. You can get a face to who's doing what. Good way to break the ice. So.
Quick comment. I just wanted to call out the students that did the girls and boys states, and what a fantastic opportunity for them. I'm so pleased that we had students who were involved, and to hear that one was able to go down to DC was really exciting. So I just wanted to say congratulations to all of them on behalf of the board.
Yeah, Ricardo did a fantastic job. I kept getting text messages from Wes Kempton, who was there as one of the staff helping out. Just telling me what a great job Ricardo was doing, that he was lieutenant governor, and he's got a big election coming up, and he was trying to get him ready for it, and Wes was really doing a great job. If you remember, Wes was our graduation speaker last year, and it just did a great job of keeping me informed. And then a fellow alum went down, Dave Brazell went down, and he was kind of keeping me informed of this kid. He goes, "You got this kid from MBU, he's tearing it up. He's doing a great job," and sure enough, he got elected to go to Boys Nation, which is a great honor. We were trying to look back, and I think there's only been 4 kids from MBU total that have gone to Boys Nation. So there could be more, but that was all that we could recall. So it's really a fantastic honor.
It doesn't surprise me.
He did a great job. He was the one who spoke at
No.
Memorial Day in Highgate. So,
That's fantastic.
Dan, is that the type of thing you'd put on the sign out here, a new sign? Congratulations.
yep. I wanted to speak with him first about it, but yeah, we would absolutely do that.
Put his face on it. With his consent, obviously.
New Lieutenant Governor.
We need more pictures of him.
You may remember him. He was the one in the play who came to speak to everybody about his experience in the play. He was the lead in the play and has been the lead in the play. So he won't be shy about putting his face out there.
Oh, no.
Okay, I want to just kind of return to the admin reports. Is there any other questions? All right, so I did have some. I wanted to say I was looking through them and I appreciate there's a lot of good content in there. I wanted to start out with COSHA. So you were kind of mentioning in the report that, so first of all, it kind of stuck out. You said 66 investment that you actually had to build, so that's a lot. So in terms of like the grant portion of that, so it's been kicked back, it's coming back. Is there any danger it won't get approved?
It's great.
It depends on each of the strands that you're investing in, like there's Title I, Title II, Title IV. So they have coordinators for each of those funding sources who go through the investment under that funding source, and then they make sure that it is under what's allowable by the federal government. If it isn't, they send you back some feedback, or they ask you to reword it, or they just tell you downright, this is not allowable. But I've been doing this now for about 6 years, so most of the time they do get approved. Sometimes they will ask you to give more detailed information about those particular expenses, but we finally did get ours approved on Friday.
Oh, okay, great. No, it looks like there's a lot of things that would be good. And then I wanted to ask about the three speech positions. I guess there's like a plan in place. Can you maybe expand on that, Candy?
Yes. So we are increasing our contracted services through Illuma and contracting the services of 2 full-time virtual speech pathologists who will be working to provide services to students that is an appropriate delivery method for, and also to support some evaluation work. This is an increase from our previous level. This is our 3rd year working with Illuma, so they've been very communicative, and the process has been smooth in working with them. I'll be meeting with the SLPs on the 20th when we're all back together and talking about the need across the district, what that looks like for students, and how we can best meet that need. Focusing our in-person SLPs on serving our younger students or students with maybe more intensive speech needs. That's more appropriate. Then long-term, we'll be looking at increasing our provision of service through using support staff when that's appropriate. The reality is it doesn't always take an SLP to provide practice for a certain articulation, but our SLPs will really be the experts that look at each child's needs to determine which is the most appropriate way to serve those students. So that's our plan at this time, and we will determine which students will be getting virtual therapy, which students will be having in person here in the district, and we will continue to try to work with any schools in the areas that have SLPs graduating. You know, it's not for lack of trying, it's a shortage that everybody in the region is facing, and some SLPs are moving toward virtual therapy, so that means there's less in-person candidates available, and we just haven't had applicants.
Is that, I imagine that's not quite as effective?
Actually, the feedback that we've had is that they are as effective with students, and that takes
coordination at our level to make sure that if certain students might need somebody with them to access their service. I had the pleasure of watching a session with a 3-year-old this summer. We had to contract virtual services because the day the student came for summer services, we did not have an in-person SLP. So we had a staff person with the 3-year-old, and this is one of the Illuma therapists that's worked with us now for the last couple of years. And it was really, when you see a therapist who has experience providing virtual therapy, they can engage the student. The student had this really interactive experience with, there was a fire truck, which happened to be one of the things the student's really into, and the therapist would ask the student to say something, and then something would happen with the fire truck, and the student would get up and get excited and come back and continue. And they had their 15 minutes that day, and the Illuma therapists are really great at tracking the data on student progress, writing goals for students and IEPs, and tracking that just as though they're here. So we will keep an eye on that and make sure as we go along. But so far, the feedback for the service has been positive, and it's how we need to meet this requirement and provide this service. So thank you for asking me that.
Oh, I appreciate
We'll keep
that.
you posted.
Yeah, I would like to know how that goes.
Yeah, thank you.
I feel like all my kids need virtual therapy all the time. That's just my kids. All right, thank you. And then the last one, Bethan, if you could possibly kind of, since it was brought up earlier, maybe recap like how the summer programs went, and you did mention too that in there there was some issues maybe that last week, but overall, how did the summer go?
Overall, I think it was a huge success, and I'm so proud of my team, and I think you all have to read the report. I have like a page of thank yous because our team just knocked it out of the park, and our amazing collaborators we have so many community people invested in the success of our kids, and I just feel so grateful for that. So thank you, Nicole, for one, amongst all of our other community partners. And again, the team is they work so hard. They go straight from school year, dive right into prepping for summer, they dive right into prepping for the next school year, and I am so proud of them. And as you all saw, we served about 350 kids, which felt really good. We had 5 weeks of programming, and again, overall, a huge success. I feel really good about it. And I did mention that we do have some issues with attendance, and this is something that we've seen. This kind of trends with the end of the summer, right? Like people kind of fall off the radar. And one of the dilemmas we're facing is, for instance, we were collaborating with Swanton Rec, and they pulled out all the stops and shared all of their resources, and we had some pretty poor attendance towards the end of the week, and we had a wait list that it was too late to accommodate that wait list. So we are trying to brainstorm behind the scenes, what can we do as a program moving forward to really emphasize the importance of, at the very least, communicating with us. And I understand that it being a free program that has always kind of been there, it can sometimes be overlooked as a valid program we employed over 75 people. We are working quite hard to keep it all running. So trying to find a way. We're brainstorming some things. We're using this as a learning experience. We're gathering that data to report to the grants. I speak with my colleagues at the state level pretty often. We're not necessarily unique in this problem, but I'm not going to give up on it. So I think that we'll be able to come up with some more concrete solutions. And it may honestly have to be something about limiting enrollments a little bit more. We had to send out a notice to families saying your students, if you miss this many days, they may be automatically waitlisted in the future. Things like that to really kind of emphasize that these are valuable resources we're pouring into this program, and we want to be here for the kids. And sometimes it kind of breaks your heart when you realize you had kids on the wait list that weren't able to be served because others just weren't showing up. And that's something, again, I don't think it was indicative of any one thing. It's just something we can continue to work on. But again, outside of that, I thought it was a great success, and I didn't even mention this in the report, but we had another career fair that I feel like It's fantastic. Dan was there, Christy was there. We had a lot of representatives from different entities around the state representing different industries. And it felt really good to be able to share that with our students. And next year, when I'm more on my game, I think that we can open it to the public and really make sure that we're inviting more people. But overall, I think it was a great year, great summer.
How were the internships?
Internships were, I think, awesome. I'm in the process of debriefing. They actually ended on this past Friday. So I'm actually still gathering the data on that. I'm going to be meeting with each of our intern students and each of our organizations, and we're going to chat a little bit about what we can do better moving forward, because it was a pilot program. And we really want to make sure that it's not only serving our students, it's also a benefit to the organizations in the community. So overall, it was great. We had over 5 weeks in which students were engaging in these internships. Northwest Access, Swanton Rec, Swanton Library, the Notch. Thank you, Habitat Restore. Lake Carmine, thank you. And so I was really fortunate. I was able to kind of bop in between all of these programs and check in on the interns, touch base with our organizers to make sure that it was going well. And the verbal feedback I've received so far has been very positive. And we definitely, this was a result of our state after school grant. So it is a grant we have for 3 years. We're gonna have to reevaluate our funding because we went real heavy this summer. So we may have to have a bit more of a trickle throughout the school year to continue to emphasize the summer internships. I think that's probably going to be more beneficial in the future. But overall, great, I think. But next report, I'll have some actual data for you all.
Is it possible that people who were at the end of the program who are absent to just contact those families and just let them know that this has an impact on the program going forward, as people miss, people eliminated? I mean, it doesn't have to be a sledgehammer, but at the same time, I think people need to be held accountable. And if we served everybody, that's great, but the youngster who didn't go this year because somebody else took a slot for part of the time.
I thank you for saying that, and I did I sent a rather reprimanding email, and I did then receive some feedback from parents saying, apologizing and saying, we're so sorry, like this is our situation. I do think that we can do better with our communications about this, and I think it needs to come from more than just me, because I think I do kind of just become the voice in the background at times because I talk a lot. So I'm thinking that if we can find more folks to help us get this message out there, and if we can be more clear and concise in the future with the way we outreach. But I appreciate that suggestion, and yeah, absolutely follow up.
Some people may know in May or June that they're going to be on this week in July, the last 2 weeks. That gives you an opportunity to consider.
I was thinking maybe a reminder email before each, because we do send out schedules and all that, but maybe just a reminder of the importance of communication. If people open their emails during the summer, which is a challenge for all of us, I think.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, I appreciate it. Thanks for showing up. I'm sure it was a long day and the school year was just getting started. Anything else for admin?
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think mine would be for Wendy. You did do a breakdown of the preschool, call it situation, maybe. So if you could just kind of run through that.
Sure.
Like what the changes are that are going to be happening.
Yes, so we have been trying to fill a full-time classroom teaching position for pre-K for over a year now. And despite many different approaches to doing that, we have not been able to fill that position. And because of that, we had to take a look at our resources that we had for our teachers, take a look at the needs across the district for pre-K, providing pre-K, and how it was being provided in each of our locations. We met with the pre-K teachers and service providers to get their ideas about how could we make sure that publicly funded pre-K opportunities were available for all age-eligible 3- and 4-year-olds in Franklin, Highgate, and Swanton was possible. And a lot of different ideas were generated. Many of them, unfortunately, did not hit on some of our priorities that the leadership team had identified, which were ensuring equitable access across all of the towns so that the 4-year-olds in Franklin and 3-year-olds in Franklin are getting the same amount of preschool opportunity at the school-based program as Swanton. So aligning those to be equitable was important. Making sure that a class of pre-K students had one teacher instead of being shared by a variety of teachers was important to us, so that families had one person leading that classroom that they would be in contact with. And so ultimately, we landed on moving the 3-year-old opportunity this year to a Ready, Set, Learn program is the name that the team came up with. And that's a 3-hour opportunity once a week at each of the schools for age-eligible 3-year-olds to come to the school and have a structured play-based learning environment to get used to coming to the school building, get to know their local school, to get to know the people in their local school, to get to experience a circle time and a routine in a preschool classroom. And to do that, we turned one of our teaching positions into a teacher who would go to each of the schools to provide that to the communities. So our teacher, Simone Tess, who was previously a 4-year-old teacher in Swanton, will be our Ready, Set, Learn classroom teacher this year. We worked with the teachers also once we landed on the model to get their input about what their preferences were, if they had something that they were more inclined to want to do. And we were really happy that we were able to provide everybody with their first choice or second choice out of the options that were available. We communicated that out to families, and we're working on getting the classrooms ready to have that opportunity. We just yesterday we met with the licensor from the Child Development Division virtually for the new classroom in Franklin, and we're very pleased that that license for that classroom is going through. No problems. Thank you to everybody who put in all the work to make that happen and get it set up and ready, and following all of the licensing regulations that we're required to do. It's a beautiful space, so we're really excited about that. So that addresses the 3-year-olds for this year. We do want to move in a direction where we can increase the 3-year-old programming back to the 10 hours a week for Act 166. If we are able to secure a teacher in the future, we can move in that direction. The 4-year-olds are being taught, it's a similar model to what we had previously, where we have a teacher from Swanton who was formerly only in Swanton, previously came and provided teaching services to Swanton a certain number of days a week and Highgate. And this year with this shift, that teacher is going to go to Franklin and teach the 4-year-old classes. So the 4-year-olds in Franklin will have the full amount of hours that Highgate has and Swanton has. We're keeping that level at the 14 hours a week that we've built up to. We think that that's really important for 4-year-olds to get right before coming into kindergarten. And everybody has just really come together on trying to solve this issue. And I really appreciate all of the staff members' input and working with the building-based administrators to get a plan in place. And that's the plan for this year.
As a new Spark Academy, that would be helping out.
Some of our families are choosing Act 166 through Spark Academy. We always need more providers in the area, so we are thrilled to welcome them to the community and have spots for our students to go. If they're not able to come to the school-based program. But our program assistant, Ashley Maskell, has had a few requests from families for Act 166 for that location. So it's not a situation where we're taking from somebody or they're taking from us. We need all of these options for families because pre-K is not a one-size-fits-all for families. Some families need pre-K that's also childcare. Some families are able to access publicly funded school-based pre-K and do the transportation required for that. So it's really great that we have that new program in our community. We look forward to seeing what they do with their program.
I received a notice this week, I'm sure a lot of people did, but some strong soldiers that we have another request for the child.
Great. It's good news for families. Thank you for this.
Anything else for Edmund?
And I just put in a plug next Thursday, open house at the Franklin School to look at the expansion project. And we will have light refreshments and Laura and Joyce and I will be stationed throughout the space to answer any questions about the use of spaces. We're very excited.
All right, well, thanks for having for showing up.
I have any questions? We can speak a little louder because it's really hard to hear you back
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you to Adam for showing up. If you like to, you don't have to stick around for me if you like. All right, so next agenda item is presentations and discussion items. First up is MVSD football scoreboard update with possible action. Or would you like to start that off? Or-
Sure. I'm sure most of you are aware that this issue was brought out in the public and then brought to the board. As soon as my office found out about this, we immediately kind of reacted and stepped back and looked at what went wrong and what the concern was. Basically, this was a case of a process not being followed, and possibly not being communicated appropriately internally and externally. So we took a look at what those processes were internally. We've talked with administration here at MVU, we've talked with Julie, we've talked with the facility task force, we've talked with John Lumpson, the athletic director, the building principals, and just basically, again, looked at what went wrong, if we could improve any written procedures, any forms, any information that we put out to coaches and things. I think we've done all of that. We backed this process up all the way back to the beginning. We have created written fundraising procedures. We already had written local grant and donation approval procedures. We already had forms for both, but we have now adjusted those, added information. We also created a MVSD procedure for requesting capital projects, equipment, and ground-related items, and a form for that as well. As far as communicating these processes to our organization, or the employees within our organization, they are on our website now under the procedures tab. I actually was late today because I attended the coaches meeting for the season. I will be doing that at the beginning of every season to make sure that people are aware that these are processes that we have and that we're here to help. And that the board can only consider these types of things and the office can only consider these types of things if we know about them and we want to help. So hopefully we've gotten ahead of this issue and we've resolved or adjust some gaps maybe in the communication. As far as the scoreboard, we've met with the coaches, we've met with the football coach, we met with Dan and John Lumsden and myself. Who else was there? I'm trying to remember. This is like weeks of multiple times. The facility task force.
Jason was with
And Jason, thank you. And we basically backed up again and looked at what is the actual cost of what this team is trying to accomplish. How does that fit into our other capital plan, our capital planning? Looked at what they may have not considered, and oftentimes that's the case. And hopefully these forms will help address that. But looking at the whole project as a whole or the whole situation and what other funding might be available, what they're really asking for. In this situation, the team was aware that they needed to raise money for a scoreboard, but they weren't necessarily aware that beams and concrete and site work were necessary and electrical work was necessary, and oftentimes that's the case, which is why we need to bring in the technology department and the facility director and other coaches that have experience with this kind of thing. So I think we've done all that. Basically, the scoreboard in its entirety with beams, concrete, electrical, insulation, freight is approximately $35,235. The football account and the football team have raised over the last 3 years with Calcuttas and golf tournaments approximately, well, almost $30,000, but they've spent some of that down, so they have a balance of about just slightly over $21,000. So for this project, they would be short about $16,000. I'm sorry, for this project, they actually want to earmark $16,500 of those dollars. Because they do have a couple of other small things that they are looking to fund, like their year-end celebration event, and they typically get a coach bus at the end of the year, which is obviously above and beyond what the general fund contributes to. So the remaining football balance after this contribution would be $4,700. They have, John Lumsden and Dan, I believe, have worked with the boosters department or the boosters group, and they have agreed to donate $1,000 to the project when it does move forward, when and if it does move forward. And then there's also a student activities fund balance in the athletic student activities account, which is just leftover fundraising funds, different kinds of things that happen. They're willing to donate another $1,000. So basically, the football team and MVU, the program's looking for $16,735 to be considered for this now. Understanding that, and the conversation with the facility task force was that even though we will take responsibility for the process maybe not being as clear as it needed to be and not communicating as well, there is a process for these things. There is a 5-year, 10-year, long-term capital plan with many, many things on it that the district is trying to address. The process wasn't followed, and so this is just now coming to the table to be considered, and it is a considerable amount of money. I don't know if, Peter, you want to speak to
that was brought to us. So we don't know about it, right? We don't know that there's this project out there, and we're not saying good, bad, or otherwise. I mean, we certainly would support a scoreboard, but the reason we have a process is because you could be out there raising money for something, maybe it doesn't fit with our process or our facility, or maybe it's not, we don't feel it's good for the school. It's like, we have to know what you're raising money for, and does it go with, if we're going to support it, right? Mm-hmm. They gotta come to us first. And now, we also need to know, are you going to be fundraising the whole thing? Or are you expecting the school to kick in? And obviously in this case, they haven't been able to raise all of the money, so they're looking for, as Laura said, $16,000 something from the school that we didn't know about, so we haven't budgeted for it. So, okay, then we look at, if they do the process now, we approve it tonight, when can the scoreboard get in? We're looking late into October, might be ready if everything went perfect for the last game. I think this needs to be something that is in the budget that we're prepared for. We just went through a whole budget cycle. We can't have things coming, we're gonna see this enough with overruns and different kinds of things. We're right at the beginning of the school year. I don't think and that's if everything goes right. There's a chance that wouldn't even be up for a game this year. To me, the smarter thing to be would to be budget this for next year and see if we could get it for their first game next year. That would be what I would suggest.
That makes sense. I think, this was brought to my attention as a board member, and my bigger concern is what has been done to ensure this doesn't happen again. Like, what sort of misstep? That's a massive misstep for a large group to think that they have follow the procedure, they've spent all this energy raising this money only to be told like, nope, it's not gonna work. I wanna make sure that we have safeguards in place so that this never happens again, because talk about a blow to a group that is just, you know, it's fledgling, you know, it's still very young. That's a blow to morale, that's a blow to everybody who's put in that effort. So I appreciate the fact that we've got updated forms. My understanding is that there were forms previously and still something went off the tracks. So what safeguards are we putting in place to ensure this doesn't happen? Like,
I'll let Laura go into more detail, but I think there was mistakes made.
Yeah.
From our aspect, from the administration, from the group raising the money. There's plenty of blame to be spread around. But Dan and John came to our facilities meeting. We talked through this. We talked about the correct procedure. Laura just said that she's going to, with John, the team orientations or whatever, you know, to start each season, to explain to them the fundraising process so everyone is aware of it, that you need to go through these instructions and make sure that we as an administration, as a facility, understand what they're raising money for, why, how much money, because a lot of times they're raising money and they got a price for what the scoreboard is.
right.
And that's it, you know, so they
Right.
think they're gonna have the money, but there's a lot of other things in it. And we need to look at the IT standpoint, we need to look at, and there's also permitting. We have to have permits to put these things in. So there's a lot of details that's gonna help everybody if we do it the right way. Everybody is going to understand what's needed, and there shouldn't be the heartache is, you know, they don't want us to have this. It's more, do we have everything done the way we're supposed to do it?
And I understand that. I'm just wondering how would somebody know? You know, somebody off the street who does this form. At what point does somebody step in and say, okay, yes, the scoreboard costs this, but there are all these extras that fall in. Whose responsibility is that? And at what point does that conversation take place so that we don't have 3 years of fundraising only to find out, oh gosh, we don't actually have a full scope of this project. So I just want to make sure that those conversations take place early enough and know whose job it is to have those conversations, to look at this and be like, that looks like more than just a scoreboard, there's more to it. Are these forms going to go to the facilities committee? Will they go to the coach? Like, who's in charge of making sure the process is followed and making sure that folks off the street who, you know, I want to think half of this stuff, like how is that being brought to their attention to make sure that the knowledge is passed on?
So there's been, I would say it's not one person, but it's a group of us that are responsible for that now.
Okay.
Because it needs to be. There's too many things to consider when you're talking about any of these, either whether it's fundraising, then it has to be, you know, the people responsible for the coaches, the MVU administration, and it has to be the finance office, because there's rules that have to be followed. So there's going to be a group, but what I just explained to these coaches is the second you start thinking about it, fill out a form, because that's what starts the conversation, and we want to help you. Like that, I can't guarantee things are going to happen, but I can definitely help you a lot more if I know about it than I can if I don't know about it. And we've had very serious conversations internally with the group, with the necessary administration, to really understand how important this is and why we need to do better. I can tell you that another thing that we're discussing is that, and I'm working with John and Dan on, is a very clear list, because I think it's also part of this, a very clear list of what is supported for each program by the taxpayers and the budget, and what isn't, because I don't know if it's always consistent. We have newer sports, we have older sports, we have less popular sports, more popular, you know, so all the things for whatever reason, you know, and I think we really need the board. I would like to bring to the board and allow you to evaluate exactly what you would like to support and make sure that it's the way that you want. We're drawing a line in the sand for hockey and for soccer the way that you want to, and I don't think we've really, we do budget for things, and I think John knows and I know, but I'm not sure that we communicate that well, and I think we should be able to hand the coaches something, and we should be able to say,
you know, here's the fundraising procedure and form if you wanna do that, if you're thinking about it, but here's what the taxpayers already support, and it's in black and white. You already are gonna get a jersey, you're already gonna get gloves, whatever, I don't know, balls and whatever. So I think that's another really important thing. So in the next 2 months, I've already have meetings scheduled with John to work on that, and Dan and Jason will be involved to some degree too. Also in my office, we are now going to be tracking all the fundraisers. We do already with fundraising codes throughout student activities. So, you know, athletics has a code, and football has a code, and soccer has a code. But each fundraiser wasn't tracked because our software can only, I only want so many codes, right? So we have Dawn in my office now, who's my admin assistant, and she has created a spreadsheet. Every form will go to her, and that will start the process. 3 people have access to it. We'll know when that happens. We'll get a notified, and that will trigger all that. So really, these yearly fundraisers, if they're a quick in and out, like I want to do T-shirts, I want to raise the money for T-shirts, I want to spend the money on T-shirts, should never go more than a year. The money's going to go in, the money's going to go out, and it won't be just John Lumsden's responsibility to do that. Technically, he's managing his coaches, but we can help him make sure that those funds are going in and out enough. There's not so many that we don't have the capacity to do that, so it'll be another set of eyes on that. I think that's it.
So
The only thing I would add to that is already we had a fundraiser proposal by soccer, girls soccer, and we already kicked it back due to the new form because they weren't specific about what they were raising funds for. So, I mean, I like the new form already because it outlines exactly specifically what they are raising funds for rather than just for the program. Because virtually every program that we have, and it doesn't matter whether it's National Honor Society or you know, volleyball, everybody fundraises so that they can get extra stuff for their kids, for the programs. So, you know, I just want to say that form is helping out a lot already.
I was going to ask that too, Laura. Are you also going to be having conversations with the other principals? I know, for example, that Highgate PTKO is in the early stages of talking about fundraising for playground equipment. So it's not just the scores that was it this time, but there's other things out there.
Yeah, so at one of the upcoming admin meetings, I will again be going through all of this and how it should all be working, and then it will be the principal's responsibility to go. It's not as big of an issue in the elementary schools because they just don't have as many groups, but yes, trying to get ahead of that because, yeah, anytime anyone's in the community soliciting funds or raising funds in the name of the school district, we need to be involved. That money immediately becomes belongs the property of the taxpayers and needs to be handled that way. So we very much appreciate all of those efforts and we can help and there's a process, but we just have to know about it. So yes, I've got things in place to reiterate all of that to I think all the right people. Not to say it will never happen again, but we're trying to get ahead of it.
Go ahead, Don.
I was pleased that Dan just mentioned National Honor Society because I think one of the things as this has evolved, it almost seemed like it was coaches with the athletic people, and they probably do want fundraising. But we have a number of other organizations in the school that raise money. And we had one within the last year where another group started raising money, talking board. I think administration is kind of in the dark on it. So this forum is going to help a lot of people. I didn't want to leave it on the note that we talk a lot about coaches because this is football and athletic coaches have been doing this probably for 100 years, more than some other groups. But drama will do it. So we just need to make sure that everybody feels that they're treated fairly and that we get kind of pick out athletics and say, wow, they did a lousy job. So Peter's statement that's enough blame to go around to share for everybody. Let's get beyond it and looks like it's working.
Sure.
Laura, I just wanted to clarify this part because I'm sure someone might have misunderstood what you said. When you said it becomes the taxpayers' money, and I don't want people to think that money isn't going to be secured for this, whatever this project is. Like I worry that they'll say, oh, well, what? We're going to raise some money and maybe you could spend it on something else. And so I want, could you clarify to them that money will be secured for?
Sure. No, absolutely. Funds are we track funds on a very detailed level, and funds are never used for something that they were not intended to be used for. In our chart of accounts with, I don't even know how many codes we have, 10,000 or whatever we have, make sure that that doesn't happen. So no, when I say it becomes the property of the taxpayers, it means that it does become the property of Missisquoi Valley School District immediately. And so it is used for the purposes in which it's intended, but the auditing standards all apply, our processes have to be followed, best practice has to be followed, so we have to make sure that we can account for that money and make sure that we're using it appropriately. Basically the same way that we do for the budget or the general fund dollars. But yet no, I mean, funds are used for the intended purpose for sure.
Thank you for clarifying that, because I thought that was another point, so thanks.
Sometimes I use lingo,
Sometimes I
so
was
it's different.
I know what people are going to say. What?
No. And also these decisions aren't made in isolation, because I think that's the other thing, like in no way was football, like this fundraiser for football scoreboard, it's not like someone just saw it and decided to put it to the side like it wasn't as important as something else. That's not how we make decisions as an organization. We have an admin team that looks at things, we always are collaborating, the facility task force, the finance task force, the board, there's multiple levels of conversation. It's never one person that, just kind of sets something to the side.
So Peter, so we're not bringing any action on this right now, correct?
I guess that's up to the board, but from the facilities perspective, I thought that we felt they should be budgeted for next year.
Okay, so I was at that facilities meeting for that portion. I do agree. Sometimes when there's a mistake that's made, maybe it's just an opportunity to improve, and take that and get a little bit better. I appreciate Laura, and I know Jason was there, and Dan. A lot of work goes into identifying it and figuring out how we can make it better. So it is something that we can put into next year's, and I think given the timing, that's the biggest thing I looked at, the fact that even if we approve it right now, it's just not going to be ready. So, I think that's something that should be special for the students who fundraise for it, and they come in and it's like the first day of the season, they have their scoreboard up, and they're like proud to get ready to go. So I agree with that going into the budget for next year, and those funds, they'll stay there, correct? Yeah, so they can just sit there, that line item, and then we can budget the rest.
So if we don't approve it, like, for this budget, and it goes into next budget and is planned for, will it be up in time for that first game if we do it
Depends
that way?
how long it takes us to get a budget.
Yes.
Right.
I was gonna say, my understanding is that this, I don't wanna speak for the task force, but how other projects work and what we've tried to do is back this up like another one, is that it becomes a consideration on the capital improvement plan with all the other 8 pages of considerations. I do have a question about, just to clarify, because I would like to follow up with the coach. They have agreed to allocate $16,500 of this money towards this purpose. I believe they would continue to fundraise as well, but I don't want to speak for them towards this cause. So the board would be looking to consider the remainder of this minus anything they can fundraise in the future to be considered on the capital plan as a project for next year. I just want to make sure I'm communicating what the board is thinking.
That was my understanding from the facilities task force, but I'll let them speak.
Very clear, because, I was probably sitting here the other night thinking, yes, let's go do it. And then when I found out that even in the best of circumstances, they don't have quite half of money.
Right.
I mean, if it's a $35,000 project.
Right.
And I respect them for wanting to use the money they raise for other things.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at the numbers, a fundraiser, they were going in the wrong direction. Because as they had enough money, but then they wanted to, and needed to do some of it, so that reduced the available.
Yeah, and they did say if they were that close, they would forfeit the end of year celebration or the coach bus and take a regular bus. Like if they were that close, but that's a couple $1,000s. It's not 16. So yeah, but yeah.
well, the important thing is that's going to be on next year's budget. This year's budget is already
Through the
set.
budget process like 100 other things.
Yeah, like all the other things. The one thing I did want to ask, and this is I think for you, potentially Dan, is will the players and the families, are they going to get communication that just some mistakes were made, but there is a support for them in their fundraising efforts, and that it wasn't the board and admin, it's not just simply we didn't want to do it, but is that being communicated to the players and to the kids who like fundraise? Because that's, at the end of the day, that's to me like the most important thing. They understand that, MVSD supports what they're doing, and we like the football program, and we want to grow the program. But I just want to make sure that message is going to get down to them. You kind of speak to that a little bit. I'd ask
Go ahead.
No, I saying.
Yeah, I'm all for getting that communication out there, and I can relay that on to them. I would probably go work with John through Anthony, the coach, to help kind of get that message out there. Probably put it in writing, but I would also want to know, kind of like what Laura's talking about, is what would be the board's support of it for next year? Is it that football is going to pay for and fundraise for the full amount of the scoreboard, or is it just the $16,000 or so that they're going to have to put in? Or, is MVSD going to put up and take care of the two beams and setting the beams and the electric and the permitting? So I just want to make sure that I would be clear in my messaging as to what they would be getting.
Yeah, I'd be in support of taking the money they raised and then using that towards the school board, and then us putting in our capital line the remainder amount.
Do we have any precedent, like what have we done previously for, like the field hockey scoreboard was on there, what were we going to cover? We're going to cover the whole thing before it was donated? Like I don't want there to be this, in the last few years, other teams have come for larger projects and we said, yes, we'll do X percent or whatever. I just want to make sure we're not just on a whim saying, yes, we'll do this to have it bite us, because we've done something different for other teams. So I just want to make sure we're being equitable.
It's exactly why we need to identify exactly what we currently are funding, down to are we buying the same gloves for every person on the hockey team, or what, I think, like again, we know generally, John knows generally, I know generally, Anne Marie knows generally, but I want to have it in black and white to bring to the board and say, soccer gets a scoreboard every, I'm going to make this up, every 12 years they get a new scoreboard. We've been funding that for 3 cycles now. Do we do the same thing for football? I'm not sure that we do. Do you want to? Are we doing the same thing for field hockey? Field hockey we typically didn't, but there was a request that happened to happen in a conversation with EEI, and EEI was there at the right time. They said, we'll donate it. And then the district agreed, because of that, agreed to pay to install it. So it's kind of a promise that I will bring you those lists in the beginning of budget season so you can evaluate and tell me what you want to budget and where you want to draw the lines. Until we have that, I think it's hard to know exactly what you will support or what's consistent, to answer your question.
Right, okay.
I think in the long run that football's going to be a win-win out of this thing, because I believe that it was a struggle to get any money in the budget. No one did it. That's what we need for. And all the programs have been around and they've built on it. Football has struggled by fundraising, been successful because of fundraising, and I don't think they've come to us, and maybe not even John wants them for a lot more money. So in the end, they may get long-term support that they currently don't have.
I agree with what Rennick said as far as the situation with the scoreboard right now. If they've already fundraised half of it, to me that is going to make it a priority for our budgeting. Just like when we get matching grants and stuff, we make that a priority because we know that got money coming in. So if I was the football program, I would feel somewhat secure knowing that because you've already raised half of it, that gives us much more incentive to budget the other part, because we know that we're going to have money to support that. So That's just my thought.
Good point.
I will say, this last thing I'll say is that I do think one of the comments that we will hear back, which is understandable, and I apologize for that, is that there are kids who will no longer be on the football program when the scoreboard gets put in next year. That helped raise this money. That's just where we are, but I feel bad about that.
Yeah,
But again, that's timing. I mean, if we approve it now, it's not gonna be up in
Right,
time.
yeah, I'm just,
I get it.
if you hear that, right, understandable.
so does that answer your question, Dan, in terms of what we're trying to communicate out?
So I think what I heard is that, that they have raised roughly half the funds needed, let's call it the 16,000, and that we would put into the budget next year to help cover the other half of that. Is that what I heard?
Yes.
I would say yes.
Yeah, so that looks like what we're gonna do. So Roy, you can clear it up. And then that way you can communicate out that that's what we're doing right now and that's a plan for this.
Dan, Dan, I'm gonna speak without asking the chair of our facilities committee, but I think at the appropriate time, it might be well during budget time for football and John and you to come in and talk with the facilities committee about what the cost is at that point in time. These things have a way of growing, and talk about, I'm gonna put in 50% of the budget, so that they clearly understand that there is a process when somebody, and I won't name principals, but I remember a principal for 2-3 years wanted something in the school, and the facilities committee said not yet. So facilities will be indicated we're gonna be on board discussing this one. So that's a leg up on some of the other things. Swan did get their watch and stuff, I mean, the
Okay. Oh, you had a question?
Oh, a comment, if I may, as an advocate for a lot of the students that are playing and as a community organization that's building a feeder program for football, I would ask that you extend the communication not just to the players and parents, but to all of the community, because we've all worked hard on supporting our children, and they're frustrated and don't understand. And while this was a healthy conversation here tonight, a lot of our kids are confused and frustrated, and morale is down. And we work tirelessly to support our young people in understanding these processes, but somehow there's a disconnect from them being here and to this conversation tonight, and I can't imagine that any of them will pack the room, although I've tried. But I think communication needs to go to a larger community so we all understand now, not only these new processes that are put in place, and if I understand your hesitation on not approving it tonight, but there could be an opportunity where other members of the community, given the opportunity, knowing that, the situation, yes, there were mistakes made, yes, we're trying to move forward with it, that may come out and donate a larger or greater portion of that to help continue to support this moving forward. As a whole, now, the Swanton Rec program does not only serve the students in MVSD, but we have also branched out to support children in Albury, Enosburg, Richford, Montgomery. So we now are leaders for the northwest corridor of Vermont, and so having this structure and support for our players here within the district is very crucial to continuing for our programs to grow, and to support our young people in growing the program that they love and want to do pridefully for their community and their school district. So if you could take that into consideration, it would be very much appreciated.
Absolutely. That's very much in line with what I was asking you, is like making sure that we're sharing the message of what we're trying to do and that we do support. There's ways that we have to do things, otherwise it kind of ties our hands, but
I understand that, working for a municipality, but not everybody does, so just the more information, the better.
yeah, and if you could, I mean, Julie, I'm sure maybe you have some of that, if there's some groups or ways that we can share that information, or it's one of our challenges, we're always trying to get community involvement, right, and we want feedback, so if there's spaces where us as board members can go, or Abby can go to like share, hey, we do support it, we're trying to figure it out, please let me know, and Julie know.
Yeah, when we craft a message, we'll make sure we get it out in a lot, to get into
Absolutely. So, thank you.
I'm Ron Underwood. My son he's a senior on the football team. I can tell you guys that senior class is spearheading all of the fundraising. Once they're gone, that fundraising will drop right off. If you can move ahead and get that permit and show the parents that you're actually willing to go for the scoreboard, they will probably donate more money. Because there are 3 kids on that team that have raised 3/4 of that money. And they're all seniors. And I know they probably want to be here, but they're busy. I'm just saying, if you can show them that you're serious about letting the scoreboard go by getting the permit, you don't have to build it, but get that and see if they'll donate some more money. I know we're planning to go over that. That's all your big donors are, the senior class. And they're really disappointed.
Which is breaking our hearts. Really.
They did. My son didn't want to play this year. We had to convince him to go back and play. But he spent 3 years fundraising for that sport.
Some very serious things to consider. I appreciate you bringing that up. Any more discussion from the board on that? Anything to add?
I think at the end of the day, it's really unfortunate that it happened like this. I think it's safe for me to say nobody sitting up here wants to be in this position, wants any of our students to feel so disheartened that they would give up their senior year of playing, of all things. And I think we all wish things were different. It is what it is at this point, and I think we have the commitment of the board to move forward in the best faith, and our plan is to support this group, as it is to support all of our groups. And if there is something that we can do, as Rennick said, as Nicole said, getting the message out there. I know it doesn't change that heartbreak for these kids, but it matters to us. And if we were aware of this in enough time, we wouldn't be in this situation. And I guess I want that to be clear. It breaks my heart as a parent hearing that. So all I can do is say, for whatever role I played or failed to play, I'm sorry that this is the situation we're in, and I guess can just promise to do better as much as we can. And I think that's all any of us can do.
Speaking for many of us.
So one of the things that came up, there is a potential that we could use part of the money that we already have to purchase the actual scoreboard. Now, we're not going to be able to get the rest of the stuff, put it up, but that is a possibility. Should we just share?
I guess I don't want to speak for the task force or anything, but if the board was looking to show their commitment to the project, we could allow the football team to purchase the scoreboard with the funds that they have, even though they're a little bit short. But if they were willing to forego the coach bus and their end of year celebration, or perhaps raise a little bit, do a little more fundraising to get to that point, and they could purchase the actual scoreboard. The permits is part of the general fund. We permit for things all the time anytime we touch the ground, so that part's covered, those kind of small things. And then next year there would be a commitment, obviously, in the budget to support the rest. That's a scenario that could happen, but that's
such as the installation and all that.
Installation, the electrical, the groundwork.
I just think that I hate to see them put any more money into it. I don't want to see them lose their coach. I want to see them do the things, because physically we can't get the scoreboard up this year. So it doesn't matter really what we do, it's not going to be up there. So I'd rather see them spend their money that they've raised on stuff that their senior class can enjoy. And know that we are committed to putting up the scoreboard and financing the other half of that project so that they can have it next year. I'd hate to see them put more money into it just so they can say they have a scoreboard that we can't use, right?
Maybe it's about the principle that at least that money that was raised, they know for those that have raised it and worked for it, that the scoreboard will be bought. Even if we can't get it up this year, that's what they were fundraising for.
But is that really it's the money they've already raised to buy this, so like, you know, to gentleman's point, it's not the board doing something to show their support, it's really just them taking the money they've already raised. And to Peter's point, I don't want the seniors to miss out on anything. Like, I want them to have the full experience as much as they can, so yeah, I guess I'm not sure if that is the best.
I'm grasping at straws.
Yeah, absolutely.
My concern with that is if there's a disconnect with the scoreboard and then we'll put it up next year.
I don't think we want to school.
Like it's
Yeah,
just,
I'm
Just things are work in process.
see.
Just I understand, it's just a way for us to have concrete, commitment. But I think I hope it's the important part is directly communicating with the team and the kids that we're committed to doing it and that we raised funds and we're getting a scoreboard. And we're sorry that it didn't happen in time for you to have it for your senior year.
And I will make sure that I'm going to be at that meeting when it happens. Dan and John and I would need to have that conversation and look those people in the face and tell them how we're gonna fix it. We already have once, but now that we've spoken with the board, we can speak more clearly about that.
Can we have like a little celebration next year when we first put it up and invite the seniors to come back and see? I mean,
They're all gonna be out of college. Hopefully.
I think there's a way to solve this, so I'd suggest we move on.
Any other discussion on it? Sure, go ahead.
I was gonna wait for item number 7 on your agenda. But it seems like there's an opportunity here to ask this question. There's a difference between solicitation and donations. Oftentimes, people who make donations for a specific reason. If they have this is the question. If a particular group forms, and let's say they want to, or they have found a way to generate enough funds to reinstate the funding of sunsetting under Act 67, which is called the Community Schools Act. Does the procedures that you have prescribed how to go about it? Is there a form that you have to fill out? I saw the one that is on your website now. I don't know if this is current, I assume
It's for local grants and donations.
this is mini grant, donation request, it's the only one that I'm able to find that actually,
Yeah.
donation request. But we're not, it's not like somebody is coming to this organization to make a request. This is an organization that has found a way to raise the funds to replace the money that sunsets out of Act 67 issue. So if that organization comes to you and says, look, we're going to give you money to compensate, because Act 67 provided grants, unfortunately our school were one of the recipients of grants, but we would like to change that. So if there's a way for us to come up with a plan to provide the funds to put into place the benefits of Act 67, one or more in the schools. Although we object to filling out the form, something like this, but this form doesn't quite get the mark or something like
this form just allows, or is a formal way for this school district to accept those funds, to know about them and accept them, because I understand what you're doing and I appreciate what you're doing and we've had conversations about it, but if someone makes a donation, this board and this organization can either accept the donation or they can refuse the donation, regardless of what it's for. I would think most of the time we would definitely be very appreciative and accept the donation. But that's what this form allows that to happen.
In your current procedures, section 2, donations and solicitation and acceptance. I entered that grade being soliciting or accepting a donation request for no subject to any restrictions or guidelines outlined by the law. That's in your current.
Where are you reading? I can't hear everything that you're saying, Jay, either, sorry.
That's in your current procedures.
Yep, where were you reading from then, though?
It's under the heading donations, solicitation, and acceptance. Number 2, donations, solicitation, and acceptance. If soliciting or accepting a donation, the requester must adhere to any restrictions or guidelines outlined by the law. That's in your current procedures.
If we accept the funds for the grant or the donation, then we therefore are agreeing to those terms from the donor or the grant or the grants.
Because the organization that making the donation has to comply with certain requirements. So in other words, the organization that has been created is liable under the code, which requires accounting responsibilities. So the accounting for transparency reasons and accountability does not have to be carried out by the organization.
For instance, when we CFP or consolidated federal grants, when we attest that we will use those funds in which for the purposes in which they're allowable and all the regulations and compliance, it's the same thing. We're basically saying, yes, we're applying for these grants, we agree that we're gonna follow the rules and regulations of that grant.
In this case, this organization seeks to provide funding to reinstate Act 67 at no cost to the general public. No whatsoever. And we're talking about significant amount of the money that is being organized is put into a fixed account to generate the interest to be payable to the school. So, to be honest with you, I'm not really sure just how fast or how large this fund is going to grow. The more it grows, the more complicated I suspect that it's going to get. But for that, just for clarifications, it's actually the accounting fund. And all the paperwork that all the forms and everything that filled out in the Secretary of State's office is completed, including $125 check. But it's just important that for the people involved in this project, that all the work that's gone into it is used in a manner which it was intended.
Well, I just want to thank you for that information, that insight. There has been a lot of work.
I could give you a lot more details about what's going on. I don't want to take up your time.
No, absolutely, and you're free to communicate that information with us through email too, so that we can have it. And the thing about this issue is I do think it's ongoing. We might have to have another discussion about this. I think we've learned a lot tonight, and if we need to bring this up again in another meeting, we can. So thank you for the comments, and I guess we have more work to do to figure out. Move on to item number 8 in the business office, some checkpoints. All right, so we have check warrants, and I'll just read the total amount, payable of $4,236,055.52. Can I get a motion to approve the check warrants?
I'll make the motion.
A second.
All in favor of approving the check warrants?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed 6-8-0. Next item is the student FY24 hot lunch balance.
So I am, this is the time of year when I come to the board and ask you to consider a general fund contribution to accommodate negative student hot lunch balances at the end of the fiscal year. Even though we feed all students for free currently under the CVP program and universal meals, we do have a few small balances in each of our, actually no, Franklin is 0, but Highgate has $5.60 on student accounts, MVU is $322.44, and Swanton is $119.65 for a total of $447.70. We do have a meal charge policy. We do follow the meal charge policy for things like a la carte and second meals. Some of these balances are for students that have left, had balances for multiple years that we have not been able to collect. So they're very minimal, but they can happen from time to time. But most of these are from previous years, and we're just looking to clean them up. So this will be one of the last payables for fiscal year 24.
I move approval.
A second.
Is that you, Heather?
Negative. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Item number 9, new professional hires. I think we have resignations. Bonnie, Julie?
Yes, we have resignations. We were just discussing this today, that I think it was 6 total resignations over since teachers have signed their contract that people have left. Really, is it a change culturally? If you ask a teacher my age, if you break your contract, then, unless I had to move to California for some emergency reason, just wouldn't do it. And we have people leaving the profession and people leaving the state, and there are none of the positions that we have letters of resignation for are really anything we're in a position to hold people. But I just made that editorial comment for the record. It is a real challenge. We have a teacher shortage. We're staffing, and it really puts a lot of pressure on principals and the administrative team to be in August looking for folks. Enough life circumstances happen. People have an accident or have an illness or have a life circumstance. But it is a challenge. So go
I
ahead.
thought that their teacher license could be revoked if they broke contract.
So it cannot be revoked. They technically should not be able to teach in the state of Vermont for the remainder of the year, because once they sign that contract, their license is obligated to us during that time. Now, can we truly hold people exactly accountable for that and follow them and make sure they don't, if they call a principal for a reference, if they call Julie for a reference, they will say, no, they shouldn't have even been interviewing. But if we took it all the way to arbitration, it would be that they could prove they had a life circumstance or something. Unfortunately, in this case, we have not lost anybody who's trying to go to another school. So we have no recourse. We have people who are leaving education. So once they move to the private sector, there's nothing we can do. We had one teacher who was moving here from New York, and they broke their contract. If they're teaching in New York, we can't do anything about that. We had one that already worked here that lives in New York, and then we had one that was moving here from New York. So once they're out of state, we can't do anything. And if they are leaving education, our hands are tied.
Are any of them people we've hired in the last 4 or 5 months to begin with us this year? Because we've had that.
No, we have 3 folks. We have Tiffany Renadette, who has been a teacher here for a very long time in Swanton, and she's leaving education to work for the government. And understandably, however, government's timeline doesn't line up with teacher contract timelines, so, that was her reasoning. We have Melissa Gaudio, who is a school social worker here at NVU. She's been here, retired during COVID, so probably 4 years, 3 or 4 years. And she is leaving education. And the third person is Minnie Hall, a special educator. I believe this would be her 3rd year? Second. So we knew she had life circumstances that she was on the fence with, and she said, yes, I'm going to be here. So that was hard, particularly because special ed, there are no applicants for her vacancy. So those are all challenges that we have.
And this bottom line for me is you don't want anyone working with you that doesn't want to.
That is true. That is true. But it is difficult when we have to.
Must be very frustrating.
I mean, for example, we had the whole conversation about SLPs earlier in the evening. We had a young woman this time last year who left as an SLP and accepted a resignation. She had a significant life circumstance. It was an understandable reason. It is more than a year that we've been looking for a replacement and we can't find it. So that is the reality that schools are facing right now. So it is a blow. It is a blow. They're all people that we respect, and we respect the work that they do for the district, and we're grateful to them for that work. We don't want to not say that.
No, it's just difficult because all the resignations happened within the last couple of weeks. And so
Timing is probably.
Right, when we have, in-service starting on Monday, it creates a lot of, information to go to families, a lot of replanning, just a lot of difficulties for our principals, for staffing reasons.
So is that just one classroom teacher?
One classroom teacher, yes. One classroom teacher, one special educator, one social worker.
So that I'm assuming all of those kiddos will be distributed.
Well, then we'll go to the new hires.
Right.
The ones
Yes.
new hire.
Are we looking for a motion to approve the resignations or
To accept them,
to
yes.
accept them?
Yes, please.
I'll make a motion to accept the resignations that were presented to us here tonight.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 8-0.
Part of the little editorial.
Uh,
It is a challenge.
2 hires?
We do have 2, right? I want you to look on my spreadsheet to make sure that we're all caught up, right?
I believe so. I went to bed at that one, so. Yes.
So as of 7:10 board meeting, all of us, all right. So we have 2. We have Jasmine Rodriguez, who will be joining Swanton as a grade 5 teacher. And we have Roxanne Bissonnette-Skills, who will be joining Swanton also as a grade 5 teacher. She's done some long-term subbing for us, and she worked for us in another capacity as well. And she's been a para in our school. So we have those 2 positions that I have met with both of them. And since then, with Tiffany's resignation, Anya and I met with Chris and Jess Forbo and looked at their classroom size and their numbers, and they were still interviewing and looking, but given the time, we moved a 1st grade classroom to 3rd grade and a 3rd grade teacher up to 6th grade so that the class sizes were appropriate and manageable, and we didn't want to take somebody out of intervention if we could help it. So that was the decision that the team came up with, and so we will have everybody. We will be fully staffed. And classroom teachers, classrooms. So we would look for approval of those 2 new hires.
I'll move to recommend the new hires as recommended by the superintendent.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor of the new hires approval?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 8-0. Alright, next item is employee contract matter, finding for an executive session. Remind me, Julie, do we have to say something for that?
Just that we wanted to discuss 2 employees, and that premature public knowledge of that. But one or both parties at a substantial disadvantage.
Do we need a motion for that?
A motion for the finding, and then we make a motion to go into executive session.
Should we finish the agenda?
Oh, yes.
Well, we just need to see it now.
Well, I put it where it goes. We
No, no,
find
you're
it,
okay.
go back to executive session,
That was on me.
and then we.
Okay. Committee updates, facility and finance. Peter?
Gosh, I should have looked at this agenda closer. No, there's been a lot of good things. We had a good facilities meeting the other night. Things are coming right along. We talked about the Franklin project, gonna have the open house, a lot of other good flooring, all kinds of stuff, new furniture, all stuff going in there, so that's great. A lot of work going on in Highgate as well. Swanton is really busy with putting a roof in and windows, and Jason said it's really coming out great, and we kind of had an overview from Dan today what's going on here at MVU and trying to get this roof here finished up before school starts. So, but all in all, just a shout out to our facilities directors and their teams doing a great job. So that's pretty much my update.
We should probably all talk about it. It's amazing how much, thinking of the years I was in education, it's amazing how much they get done. We really work together.
Yeah.
Alright, thank you, Peter. For the finance committee, our last meeting was, seems a while ago now, was that?
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, seems like a long time ago. It's like, things change so fast. Not a lot of huge updates, just getting ready for budget preparation season. We're gonna start back meetings in October, and we're gonna bring to us as needed some of the items we need to address. We have our goal prioritization. Conversations like this in the school board kind of tie into that funding capital line, so we'll be working on that. I would ask that, Laura, Julie, if there's anything additional, Dan, about the school board or something that changes or we need to address, or if it's a fluid situation, just bring that to us. Future agenda items, I guess we have work-based learning.
Yeah, we did put community engagement opportunities on the agenda. We're gonna have that on as a consistent agenda item. Skip over it.
The future.
From the retreat.
From the retreat, we
Yes.
discussed that we wanted to have that on there so we could talk about opportunities that are coming up. For instance, tomorrow is the new teacher reception. I know a couple of folks are coming to that here at MVU in the Commons at 2:30.
It's here.
It is here. We have the Franklin MVSD space expansion. That is next Thursday at, I just closed the tab that
6
has
to 8.
6 to 8.
Yeah.
Thursday the 22nd. Those are 2 that I know that are coming up right away. Before we went to, Stephanie and I went to the Swanton Block Party at the end of July, which was great. A great opportunity to see kids and hand out books and meet the community. So I was really appreciative of Stephanie bringing that opportunity to us to do.
I know there's the back to school barbecue in the Swine. I'll be there because, kids. But if anyone else
group wants to be there, that's coming up as well.
I know Chris is sending an invitation to everybody for that.
Okay, great.
All right, thank you for that. That's good. For that. Tomorrow's 2:30, right?
Yes.
All right, next board meeting is going to be August 27th in Swanton Central School Library, 6 p.m. Next item is possible executive session to discuss confidential employee matters where premature public knowledge will be put one or more of the parties at a substantial disadvantage. Can I get a motion?
I'll make that motion. I'll second.
All right, in favor?
Hi.
For executive session.
Oh,
Are we inviting anyone in?
Yeah, I'd like to invite Julie and anybody else.
Any of you in that, this day where we can talk about your contractual process?
Yeah.
Because
Whatever you need. I just, Megan, you motion, Elaine, you second.
Yes.
Sorry.
It came from the same quadrant, so, you know.
I know, you two are really like sounding alike tonight.
All right, all in favor, go to the 8th, sir.
Okay.
Aye.
Aye.